Mr. Trump, in a 2012 debate, President Obama mocked Mitt Romney's assertion that Russia was the top geopolitical challenge facing the United States, saying he was a Cold War dinosaur. Now, Russia has invaded Ukraine and has put troops in Syria. You have said you will have a good relationship with Mr. Putin. So what does President Trump do in response to Russia's aggression?
Well, first of all, it's not only Russia. We have problems with North Korea where they actually have nuclear weapons. You know, nobody talks about it. We talk about Iran, and that's one of the worst deals ever made, one of the worst contracts ever signed, ever in anything. And it's a disgrace. But we have somebody over there, a madman, who already has nuclear weapons. We don't talk about that. That's a problem. China is a problem, both economically and what they're doing in the South China Sea. I mean, they are becoming a very, very major force. So we have more than just Russia. But as far as the Ukraine is concerned, and you could say Syria, as far as Syria, I like if Putin wants to go in, and I got to know him very well because we were both on 60 Minutes. We were stablemates, and we did very well that night. But you know that. But if Putin wants to go and knock the hell out of ISIS, I am all for it 100%, and I can't understand how anybody would be against it. They blew up, hold it, they blew up, wait a minute, they blew up a Russian airplane. He cannot be in love with these people. He's going in, and we can go in, and everybody should go in. As far as the Ukraine is concerned, we have a group of people and a group of countries, including Germany, tremendous economic behemoth. Why are we always doing the work? I'm all for protecting Ukraine and working, but we have countries that are surrounding the Ukraine that aren't doing anything. They say, keep going, you dummies, keep going, protect us. And we have to get smart. We can't continue to be the policemen of the world. We owe $19 trillion. We have a country that's going to hell. We have an infrastructure that's falling apart, our roads, our bridges, our schools, our airports, and we have to start investing money in our country.
Thank you, sir.
Donald is wrong on this. He is absolutely wrong on this. We're not going to be the world's policeman, but we sure as heck better be the world's leader. There's a huge difference where without us leading, voids are filled. And the idea that it's a good idea for Putin to be in Syria.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, there's a lot of talk about, really, he wants to let Russia go and do its thing. Russia's in Syria, and why do we need to be there as well? Let's pull back. We're in a lot of debt. Let's sort of concentrate on our own country and our own agenda. And so obviously there's a lot of rhetoric in all of that. We kind of got to cut through the noise of what he's saying, what a lot of people say, I guess, and really concentrate on what God says. So when we hear that, we also turn to our Bibles and really wonder what is going to happen relative to what the Bible says. What does God say? And we have to understand and remember that God is actually in control of all these world events. God really cares about America and Russia. And why does God care about America and Russia? Because they have an interest in the Middle East. And God cares about those people. He is really in control. Here's a quote here. The Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. He gives them to anyone he chooses. And the people around us, people at work, they've got no idea what is happening. And even some religions, they don't actually believe that God is in control of this. But we, of course, do believe that God is in control of this. Many people believe that this world is on some roller coaster and the wheels are getting very wobbly and, there's catastrophe coming. But we know God is in control. Here's another quote. Everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in position of authority have been placed there by God. These are really powerful verses, and we have to keep them in mind when we see the people that lead the world and the decisions that they make. God is there behind them. God puts these people up. They're not there on their own merit. We've got to really remember that. Donald Trump didn't run his own race. God was there. If God knows that our thoughts and intents, of course he surely knows the intents and thoughts behind these other leaders, right? He's such an easy pick, really. Somehow this guy is now arguably the most powerful man on the earth. And it is crazy. Everyone thinks that. And it is really amazing. This guy is in power. He's had zero political experience whatsoever. None. And unlike other famous people who have gone into politics, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Peter Garrett maybe, they got to go into the system and they have to be in there for some time before they climb the ladder and eventually get there. This guy hasn't. He has he doesn't know how the political machine works. He doesn't know how the game is played. He has somehow got to the top. And so when we look at what's happening in the world, we have these goggles and these lenses on us that we can peer through the history of the world with the Bible in hand, and we have a special perspective that other people do not. We have had this board game played out for us for many years. We can take comfort in that. What has God got in plan for Donald Trump, perhaps? We wonder about that. So we look with the goggles of the world. Now, I guess when we're talking about America, we are talking about one of these young lions that was read for us in Ezekiel 38. So let's just have a quick look at, and I've got here the King of the South, which is styled, it doesn't talk here about the King of the South, but it talks about that in Daniel chapter 11. We'll come to that later on, but quickly, what is this King of the South? And how does it relate to the video that was shown just before? So obviously Ezekiel 38 is all about Russia invading Israel, and you all know that. Russia and, who we got here, Magog, sort of Central Europe, and Meshech or Moscow, and all of these, places, Germany, Persia, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, Goma, or France, Tagama, Turkey, they're all there, and they're coming into Israel, and who's against them? In verse 13, we have Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. These are these other king, who are saying, hey, well, wait up a minute. Have you come to take a spoil? Have you assembled your host to carry off plunder, to take away silver and gold, and to take away livestock and goods, and seize a great spoil? This is Ezekiel 38, verse 13 onwards. So Sheba and Dedan, where are those? We don't have many young people here, but Sheba and Dedan, let's have a quick look. When we go to a pretty old map, we have to obviously shoot Sheba and Dedan don't exist anywhere today, but when we look at an old map, there they are, and this, probably not as clear here, but what we're looking at is what country? So we want to have a go at that? Saudi Arabia. So Sheba and Dedan, Saudi Arabia. Tarshish, who are Tarshish? Tarshish is Britain, and the young lions. Now, this poster, which you've probably all seen so many times, just highlighting this old lion, which is this symbol of Britain, and the young lions, USA, Canada, Australia. And so when we think of, where does America sit in all of this? I think this is really interesting now with Donald Trump in power. We want to talk about with that. And like that, this poster sort of shows perhaps the angels are hard at work back in World War I in 1918, setting this kind of, goodies versus baddies, two teams, back then. So we've got these young lions, which are still these young lions today. And when you look at, so if we go forward a bit from World War I into Cold War alignment, which is a pretty small map up there, you can see the blue is pro-Western, and then the red is pro-Soviet. And if we fast forward even a bit more to probably just a few years ago when Iran was pretty hot, with all this nuclear stuff. So this is a couple of years ago. It's pretty hard to see. Maybe I can, down the bottom of this map, around Iran, in Saudi Arabia, is all of these American bases. And America and British have got military bases all set up. So this is obviously in the south of Israel, so keep that in mind. Because it is a little bit weird that, how come Britain is part of this? Britain isn't sort of anywhere near Saudi Arabia. India or Australia, So but when you look at their military, here's another couple of maps. So this is fast forwarding like right up until now. And one of these maps only like 2 weeks old, where we've got this huge, sort of force coming right into power here. So someone's mapped out here, we've got Russian warships, how many of those? We've got 6 of those. How many US ships have we got? Another 6 of those. And you can see what's happening every month or so goes past, and another, Russian aircraft gets pulled in, and then some more British submarines come in, and then Iran sends over their militia to help fight in Syria. This is all building. This is truly amazing. But when we think about what does America want with all this, we just saw a video where Trump says, I want out. I want to pull myself out. He doesn't want all of his ships there. He doesn't want to be wasting millions and billions of dollars doing all this. He wants to pull out. This is very interesting. Do you think he can? What happens if he does? When you read Ezekiel 38 and in verse 13, it's like as if they're almost surprised. Somehow America has to be opposed to whatever it is that Russia's doing. Somehow, Putin and Trump are saying we're buddies, but somehow America has to really oppose whatever Trump is doing. And it's almost, when you read verse 13, it's almost like he's surprised. Or, the young lions are, they're just, whoa, hang on a minute, what? Oh, you come to take us? Whoa, where did this come from? What are you doing? What on earth are you doing here? That's what he's almost saying. Hang on a minute. So, let's just jump into some more news. So this is just in November, sort of 9th of November. We've got this article here. What does Trump's victory mean for the Middle East? So you probably won't be able to read that. Just Syrians and Palestinians to suffer most with the doors to refugees slammed while US-Israel relations are in question. Okay, what's this all about? Reading a couple of paragraphs out of this. Secondly, Trump will inaugurate a new policy of friendship and collaboration with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, they're buddies. Based on accommodating Russia's interests. So this is America saying they'd like to accommodate Russia's interests in the Middle East. And this includes accepting Russia's role in Syria as a positive and supporting al-Assad's regime. So this is interesting. This is a real, turn of the tables. It goes on, since Trump is poised to antagonize Iran by revoking the nuclear deal. So this is when Obama made a deal with Iran. Yeah, you can do nuclear, provided blah, blah, blah. In that video we showed earlier, Trump wants to, this is the worst deal we have ever made. He wants to pull out, we are not making this deal with Iran. And then lastly in that paragraph, another regional strongman whose relations with Washington will greatly improve under Trump is Benjamin Netanyahu. This is what this is saying. Thus, another direct victim of Trump's election will be the Palestinian people, as Netanyahu will be given more of a free hand in dealing with them than any Israeli prime minister since has had since Ariel Sharon in the aftermath of September 11. Wow. Okay, what have we got here? Trump wins US-Russian hostility on hold, but for how long? Okay, so this article is saying, well, Russia and Trump are buddies, and Reuters have got a few analysts onto this and thought, well, hang on a minute. Trump's ascent to the White House carries the risk of dangerous miscalculations if the US president-elect and Putin, two willful personalities and self-styled leaders who have exchanged occasional compliments, decide they have misjudged one another, according to Russian experts and others. Putin has the ability to advance his interest in many different ways. Sometimes tactical diplomacy can help. Okay. So what this is saying is, well, we might be friends, but for how long? How long is this friendship going to last? They're both strong-willed. They're both hard negotiators. Reuters is saying this could end in trouble. And here we go. What does Britain think about all of this? So Trump and Putin, buddies. What does Britain think? Trump-Putin alliance sparks diplomatic crisis as British ministers demand assurance over US and Russia. This is the old line saying, hang on a minute. Britain facing diplomatic crisis with the US over Donald Trump's plan to forge an alliance with Vladimir Putin and bolster the Syrian regime. Trump is wanting a deal with Russia. Listen, Putin, if you look after Syria, that would be great. We will handshake on that, we'll pull out, you do your thing. And Britain is saying, well, this guy is the enemy. Britain want to get over to America as fast as they can to reassure Trump that this guy is the bad guy. And why does Britain really think that this guy is the bad guy? Is he really the bad guy? Trump doesn't really think he's that bad. Trump thinks he's pretty good. Daily Mail. So this is 1st of December. This is 3 days ago. Russia positions 55,000 troops in its border with Ukraine in the latest sign of aggression by Putin. As fears grow, he is preparing for war. Brothers and sisters, this is real. This is really quite scary. The map on the left shows you where he's just gone and pulled 55,000 troops. There was 7,500 troops already there, just an additional 55,000. What's going on? Is he preparing for war? And what about this one? This is November 28th. So 5-6 days ago. New Putin move to win a military base in Libya. Where's Libya? Just north of Africa. Libyan General Khalifa gets to Moscow and is excited because he is welcomed in Moscow, which saw an opening for Russia to gain its first military base in North Africa. President Vladimir Putin began to envisage a second Mediterranean base off the coast of Benghazi, twin to the one off of Syria. This would accommodate a Russian naval as well as air units to be located 700 kilometres. So this, we know, we've just been talking about Libya in Ezekiel 38. Libya is one of the bad guys. We know that Libya joins up with Russia to invade Israel. It says it right there in verse 5. And this is 3 days or 5 days ago. We've got a deal. Well, let's build a military base right there. That would be excellent. We need another one of those. It's too soon. Right further down in this article, it's too soon to say whether the Russian leaders' Libya initiative betokens an invitation from the new US president to work together in the Middle East. So with this thing going on in Libya and Russia and Trump are buddies, is that a good thing? Or what does it say? or Putin is cashing in on an uncertain transition period between the presidents to build up a stack of chips ready to face Trump as a rival power. That's the king of the north and the king of the south. They're just building up. So with those articles in mind, so we've got Trump, friends and buddies with Putin. He wants to make a deal with Russia. Perhaps they're not going to be friends for very long. Britain says he's the enemy. Putin is preparing for war, or some sort of war, in Ukraine. Putin's setting up in Libya. What does the Bible say? We've got to keep coming back to this. What does the Bible say? And here's Ezekiel 38 and Daniel chapter 11. We've read Ezekiel 38. Let's have a look at some of these things. They're both, obviously, they're talking about the same thing. It talks about the latter years in purple there. It is talking, they're both talking about a big army. And all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armour, even a great company, etc. They both come from the north in yellow to Israel over the mountains. So here is Gog, this king of the north, coming against this king of the south. And Daniel chapter 11 talks about this king of the south. In verse 40 of Daniel chapter 11, the king of the south shall, what's it saying? Shall push at him. So the king of the south is firstly questioning, what? Hey, what happened there? What are you doing here? And then the king of the south pushes. And when we look at what pushing really means, it's to gore, it's to push or thrust at, or to engage in thrusting or wage war. Something has to make the king of the south push against the king of the north. Trump is saying he's mates with Putin. So before Trump was in, like we've looked at these maps before Trump was in, it kind of made sense. We've got this great big American power, this young lion that is, the world leader. And it's pretty obvious that you could think that, well, sure, they're going to push, but Trump's going to pull out of all of that. I wonder if there's going to be something that changes his mind. Reuters says it's going to end in disaster. Reuters says that relationship is not a good relationship. It's not going to last. The Bible in Ezekiel 38 says it is not going to last, this relationship. How is this possible? Let's have a look at a couple of scenarios. So first one is that Trump, so this is in The Guardian last month, 10th of November, Trump has every intention of recognising Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Trump is very pro-Israel, very pro-Israel. He has his own grandchildren are getting schooled in Jewish culture and the Jewish faith. Right, that is interesting. And this article goes on to say, Israeli government ministers and political figures are pushing the US President-elect Donald Trump to quickly fulfill his campaign promise. Trump made a campaign promise to overturn decades of US foreign policy and recognise Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Let's have a quick look at this video. See if we can turn the volume up.
Israel's right wing very much celebrated a Trump victory, and almost immediately after the election results came in, called on President-elect Donald Trump to move the American embassy to Israel from where it is now in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Can you hear that at all? No? All right, should I put the microphone onto the... Okay, let's try this out.
That would effectively be the United States recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. That would buck the United Nations and decades of U.S. policy when it comes to Jerusalem. But that was a campaign promise of Donald Trump, and it's now those right-wing leaders, including the Jerusalem mayor and Israel's right-wing justice minister, who called on Donald Trump to make good on that promise. Meanwhile, the education minister congratulated Trump and also said the era of a Palestinian state is over. Meanwhile, it was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu who gave a much more measured, much more down-the-middle message. Here is what he had to say.
President-elect Trump, my friend, congratulations on being elected President of the United States of America. You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently, and I deeply appreciate it. I look forward to working with you to advance security, prosperity, and peace. Israel is grateful for the broad support it enjoys among the American people, and I'm confident that the two of us, working closely together, will bring the great alliance between our two countries to even greater heights. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless our enduring alliance.
Netanyahu's office says he spoke.
Okay, very interesting. What does the Bible say about this? Let's have a look. Russia is going to come over the mountains of Israel. Now, when we look at, verse 8 of Ezekiel 38, against the mountains of Israel. Now, we look at the mountains of Israel. That's right where the West Bank is, right? So if you look at that picture on the right-hand side, the mountains of Israel, not the plains of Israel, or the flats of Israel, or the beach of Israel, not Tel Aviv, not Haifa. The mountains of Israel, which is where Jerusalem is, which is where West Bank is, Russia, Ezekiel 38 is saying Russia's going to come over those mountains. There's going to be a major conflict here. A major conflict here at some point. So this guy, we're actually told what he thinks when he's there. When Russia is in the region somewhere, it says in verse 10 of Ezekiel 38, and it shall come to pass that at that same time things shall come into thy mind, and thou shalt have an evil thought. So he has an idea, an evil idea, and it just sort of comes to him. And perhaps he's even had this idea already. We don't know. We know that the Russians like to plan in advance. So perhaps he's already had this idea. He knows what they could possibly be doing. So he has this evil idea, and this guy says, well, hang on a minute. Have you come to take a spoil? What on earth? I thought we were friends. I thought we were buddies. I thought I knew what we're all about. You never told me this. What are you doing? And perhaps Donald Trump is there with his billions of dollars and his business savviness, and he thinks that he knows how he can make some deals in the world with world politics, but he doesn't. He doesn't know world politics. He thinks he can perhaps negotiate with the world leaders, but perhaps he can't. Perhaps this is not going to happen. So it talks about Jerusalem. And here's some other verses that talk about Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the centre of world war. So Zechariah 12 verse 2-3, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about. When they shall be in the siege, both against Judea and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone. For all people, all that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people on the earth shall be gathered together against it. Perhaps Donald Trump naively thinks that, well, you know what? Let's move the US embassy into Jerusalem. That's what he's saying. That's his election promise. Let's move the US and let's recognise. So if he moves the embassy into Jerusalem and he tells the world that Jerusalem is actually the capital of Israel, that's a huge deal. No nations recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Perhaps his naive little idea to do this is actually what flips the tables. this is perhaps what it says there, that Jerusalem is an intoxicating drink. It causes everyone who touches it to stumble. It's a burdensome stone. This could seriously spark things off. This could be it. Okay, what next? Donald Trump likely to end aid for rebels fighting Syrian government. We talked about this already. If Donald Trump pulls out, what's going to happen? Washington Post, or the New York Times says, President Donald Trump said Friday that he was likely to abandon the American effort to support and moderate the opposition groups in Syria who are battling the government of al-Assad, saying, "We have no idea who these people are." Now, in Syria, this is really, it's been going on for a long time. We've just got to perhaps refresh what the Bible says on Syria. So when we read this, so Trump is pulling out, right? Russia has got the box seat here in Syria. So let's have a look at Isaiah 17. This message came to me concerning Damascus. Look, the city of Damascus will disappear. It will become a heap of ruins. The towns of Arur will be destroyed. Flocks will graze in the streets and lie down undisturbed, with no one to chase them away. The fortified towns of Israel will be destroyed, and the royal power of Damascus will end. All that remains of Syria will share the fate of Israel's departing glory, declares the Lord of heaven. In that day, Israel's glory will go dim. What is really interesting here is that Israel is going to be destroyed the fortified towns of Israel will be destroyed at the same time as Damascus. So I'm just going to quickly flick over this article. This is the 30th of November, less than a week ago. Israeli airstrikes hit Damascus outskirts. Syrian report says Israel has been largely unaffected by the Syrian civil war raging next door, suffering only sporadic incidents of spillover fire over the frontier, which Israel has generally dismissed as tactical errors of the Assad regime. Israel has responded to these cases lightly, with limited reprisals of the Syrian position. Isaiah 17 says, well, it's probably not going to remain like that. Here's another quote, Jeremiah 49, talking about the same thing, talking about Damascus and Syria. This message was given concerning Damascus. This is what the Lord says. The towns of Hamath and Arpad are struck with fear, for they have heard the news of their destruction. Their hearts are troubled like a wild sea in the raging storm. Damascus has become feeble, and all her people turn to her to flee. Fear, anguish, and pain have gripped her as they grip a woman in labour. Okay, so there's a couple of really amazing points here. Arpad, when we look at that, what's Arpad? Type that into Wikipedia. Arpad is in Syria, an ancient city in present-day Syria near, does anyone know? Aleppo. Arpad is Aleppo. What's in the news a lot? Aleppo. Hamath, we look that up. That is Hama, the city, which is a city in central Syria. And when we look at, if you did a Google search on Aleppo, shows a map of Syria, and highlighted there are 4 towns in Syria: Aleppo, Hama, and Damascus. To be destroyed, there they are there. To be destroyed, says Jeremiah 49. Same time Israel will suffer badly. We kind of gloss over this. This is a terribly sad situation, actually. Syria is in this... So when you look at Aleppo, back in 2005, had 2.3 million people there. This is a terrible situation for the whole world that is trying to deal with at the moment. 2.3 million people, a lot bigger than Adelaide. no one quite knows how many people are there. If you look at pictures of Aleppo, it's disgusting. People are there. Civilians are there now. It's estimated that 700,000 people have probably been displaced or killed. And Russia and the Syrian government and the Irani militia, they are pounding that city with very little care of civilians and hospitals. They are trying to get rid of those that oppose the Assad regime. Okay. This is the last article I quickly wanted to look at. Iran nuclear deal could collapse under Trump. The future of the historic nuclear agreement with Iran is in the air with the prospect that Donald Trump administration could take steps that would cause Iran to abandon its commitments. Experts said on Wednesday. Some characterised Trump's election as the death knell for the deal, which was reached in 2014 and put into effect January 2015. It imposes limits on Iran's nuclear program and its ability to build atomic weapons for at least 10 years in exchange for lifting most international sanctions. In the video that played right at the start, Donald Trump is saying, this is the worst deal ever. This deal is terrible. And here, in Isaiah 21, it says, and is possibly talking about this very deal. It says, the burden of the desert of the sea, as whirlwinds in the south pass through, so it cometh from the desert, from a terrible land, a grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoil spoileth. Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Media, all the sighing thereof I have made to cease. Where's Olam and Media? Does anyone want to know? Or does anybody know? Sorry. Media, Medes and Persians, it's Iran. America thinks this, well, Donald Trump thinks this, a lot of people think this deal stinks and they want to get rid of it. And here is Isaiah talking perhaps about this deal. They want to tear that deal up. Now, what would happen if they did that? Let's have a look at this video here. So, let's get this. lots of verses talking about how bad this nation is. How they want to send fiery arrows, that they deal treacherously, and that in Ezekiel 38, which we had read, that join forces with Russia and fight and invade Israel. These guys paint flags and maps of Israel on their warheads. They are crazy. They disregard... I won't start all that again. They disregard gold and silver. They don't care because they're under sanction anyway. They just want to obliterate Israel. These guys are scary. So there you go. That is the end of our talk. We've had a look at a few of these guys here. Putin, this man, he doesn't really believe that he's got borders. I don't know if you saw that video recently. Just doesn't believe he has borders that he has to worry about. He has become extremely powerful over the last couple of years. This man, Donald Trump, the poor guy, is probably put into this position. He is extremely naive, perhaps. He probably has really good intentions. He probably really does have good intentions, but he does not understand politics. He's never had a day of politics in his life. He thinks he can deal with the king of the north, but he can't. The Bible says he cannot deal with the king of the north. He says the king of the south and the king of the north will remain enemies. He wants to scrap the Iranian deal, which we know where that's going to end up. He forgoes the agreement that Obama's put forward in 2014. He wants to fully back Israel, and we would probably see that as a good thing, that he's backing Israel. That's excellent. But perhaps his love for Israel is the very thing that destabilizes the whole Middle East. So, Watchmen, we look forward to what is next.